Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television, radio, and podcast talk show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 2 p.m. on the East Coast as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You may find us on television. We are syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget, you can also find us up in North Alabama, channel 182 on Charter Communications. That's part of the Spectrum Network. You may also find us on the radio, WZLA radio station, and the podcast is on the newscasters.com. All social media sites there as well, always Facebook, all of it. So again, thank you so much for being part of our world. We love being part of your world. Continue sending email. I love it. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com. I have my very good friend Alan Mendenhall with me right now. I love our interviews. I mean, they're just right on spot, and you're so knowledgeable. And I can always see you do a lot of homework.
We've done 80-something of them over the years for over a decade. It's wild. And I'm actually crazy. Calling in today from a big conference room in Orlando, in a hotel room here in Orlando, big open space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, I love Orlando. Not this time of the year, but I love it more in the wintertime.
Yeah, there's some water slides out here behind me. You might like those. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah. Hang gliding much?
I don't know about that. If there was an ocean, maybe, but Orlando's landlocked. They make you think you're in the middle of a beach town when you're really landlocked.
I know. It's just kind of crazy. Speaking about crazy, let's talk a little bit about economics. I know that's your stronghold there as well.
Well, we just hit the $40 trillion mark in our national debt, which is an astounding figure. Yeah. It means that if you divided the national debt up equally among all U.S. households, the number would be like $310,000 per household. And the national debt has increased by like 562% since I went to college, which is wild. And the Congressional Budget Office estimates that it's going to be about $63 trillion in 2036. So this is frightening. The good news is the United States of America is a powerful country. We're not in the position of like Argentina or Greece, which defaulted and had to undergo debt restructuring, and creditors agreed to accept less money or wait longer to get paid and all that kind of stuff. The dollar is still the world's dominant reserve currency, and U.S. Treasury debt is essential to global financial markets. So we're not going to default anytime soon, and we're not headed for inflation necessarily or anything like that. But it's a very serious problem because when you have this much interest that you're paying, you have to basically pay more. The interest compounds and you're paying more, and it's a big cycle. And so let's say the government borrows $20,000 from an investor and in exchange promises to pay $20,000 back later. Well, those treasury securities are held by some just regular people, but also financial institutions, foreign countries like Japan, the UK, and China, and the Federal Reserve. But when you have more debt, there are more loans that need interest, and different treasury securities have different rates of maturities. And when the old debt matures, the government has to borrow again to pay that off. So if the new debt carries a higher interest rate, the government's interest bill can rise. And it just, as I say, it's just a vicious cycle.
Well, this is so interesting. So in our world, in Donna's boots on the ground world, okay, that's called robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it doesn't work in a household. So how does it work in the government?
Well, it shouldn't work in the government either. It's the same concept. If you're running deficits and you're not bringing in money, you've got a serious problem. So the big issue with the United States is we won't touch entitlements. We won't cut spending. Rand Paul actually has a decent plan, a good plan. I say decent. It's a good plan. The only problem is it would require Congress to actually institute it, and we know Congress is dysfunctional. But the plan is basically cut spending by 6% each year, and rather than discriminating against particular federal program saying, oh, we're going to just hit this entitlement program or that entitlement program. It would apply across the board to the entire federal budget so that in year one, we would spend just 94% of the projected amount of expenditures. And then you would do it every year. So you basically say, look, we're gonna save 6 pennies on every dollar. That makes it sound more meaningful. But you do it every single year until the budget gets balanced. He estimates that it would balance in 5 years. I don't know. It may take 6 or 7, maybe even 8. But once you got it balanced, then you keep spending at a manageable level to prevent deficits going forward. And that would prevent you from having to tax or something like that to get out. I know the administration and Secretary Bessent said we're going to grow our way out of this. And I would love to see us grow our way out of it. We've done that before. We did that after World War II. But I think that we have to cut spending in conjunction with instituting economic policies that create growth.
Well, that would make common sense in my world and in your world. Absolutely. And I'll have to tell you this, most of the email I receive from the folks who watch the show and listen to the show, they're afraid of an implosion in the United States, and we would be taken over because we owe so much money. We would be taken over by other countries that we owe money to. So what are your thoughts on that? Are we that tough to where we can withstand all of that?
Well, as I say, we're in a better position than, for example, Argentina and Greece were in. And I think it's important to understand where the debt is owed, because there is a misconception that like China owns us. And that's not the case. About 29 trillion of the debt is owed to people and organizations in the United States that are outside of government. So, like I said, there are pension funds and investors and institutional investors and banks and things like that. Then the government actually owes itself money. So some of the debt is owed to itself. For example, the Treasury owes Social Security money. Now, it is true that, like as I mentioned earlier, countries like the UK and China, Japan own some of their debt, but they hold maybe a substantial amount of treasury debt, but it's spread across many countries and even many foreign entities that are private and not necessarily countries themselves. So I think it's not true that China owns American debt. China's a creditor of the United States, but it's nowhere close to being the owner. And foreign investors as a whole are only one part of the broader public debt. So, I'm not trying to sugarcoat the situation. We're in a bad situation. We need to cut government spending. We need to reform Social Security. We need to reform Medicaid, Medicare. We need to grow the economy faster, all these things. But it's not existential at this point. There's still a way out. As I mentioned, after World War II, our public debt was about 106% of GDP, and it had fallen to 23% in 1974. So we can grow our way out, but we need to grow while cutting spending. And especially when our government spending is an impediment to growth, then how do you grow your way out of it? The spending itself is prohibiting growth from happening.
Well, and then you and I are in the world that if you and I were in Congress, we would be working urgently to get this thing handled. Why do you think there's not more urgency within Congress?
Well, I think there are many different reasons. One is I just think the institutional incentives in Congress are bad. Nobody wants to touch an entitlement program. Once the genie gets pulled out of the bottle, it's hard to put the genie back in. It's hard to say, okay, we're giving you this entitlement, you're giving that entitlement, whatever it is, but now we're going to take it away. And people act as if, if you're going to take something away, that people have no other means of supporting themselves. And so that's a big problem. So the best thing is not to create these programs to begin with, but now that they're created, how do we scale them? How do we manage spending in a way that is responsible? And that's why I think Rand Paul's plan is at least a good sell, because he's saying, look, we're not going to cut this program or that program because everyone would just have a cow if you took away their program. He's saying this is across the board. 6 cents on every dollar we spend on everything. And, the problem with that is you kind of want to spend more on military when you're dealing with a conflict in Iran or something like that. But at least it's a pathway that is more of a political possibility, I think, than other pathways.
Well, let me ask you a question, and this is the agenda of diversity. And, we've had this diversity agenda going on for several decades now. Do you feel like we're in a worse position now because of diversity, or could it be something else?
Yeah, well, it just depends on what we mean by diversity. If we're talking about just variety of human beings and their different frameworks and backgrounds and contexts and how that might enhance our ability to make sound decisions, that's one thing. If you're talking about surface level characteristics like race, that's another, because you're basically discriminating on the basis of race, notwithstanding all those things I just mentioned. You're actually assigning people merit based on their skin color, which is inherently racist. And that is a problem, because not only are you not making decisions based on merit, but you're discriminating based on race. And I tell people we ought to evaluate people's actions based on not just the concrete effects they have, but based on the quality of the intent. And if you are evaluating basically people on the basis of race, you're evaluating them on non-choices, because we're all born into the world with a particular skin color that we can't choose. And it doesn't make any sense to assign people quality or something like that on such a basis, because it's not based on the ideas they have. It's based on purely immutable characteristic that they cannot help. So I find that to be very important.
Well, I find it to be really interesting. We're about to go into a commercial break, but I wanted to ask you another quick question. This is male versus female. Now we don't have just male and female. We have, I don't know what I am. We have that now into the mixture. And there have been times in my careers as owning businesses that the man was the better person for the job. Also, there were times when the woman was the better person for the job, simply based on because it was man and a woman, but because they had the credentials I needed to get the job done right.
Yeah,
and the success of any business, you've got to have the right employees. It cannot be because I'm a woman or because I'm a man or because I don't know what I am. Do you feel like that is going to play into it now?
Well, I think it does. And I also think it's important to realize that people bring to the table different skill sets. I might be really good at what I do, Donna, but I can tell you, you don't want to hire me to be a construction worker, or you don't want to hire me to be an engineer. You don't want to hire me to be a surgeon, because I could never do those things. I just couldn't. I'm squeamish at the sight of blood, for one thing, I'm a surgeon. For the construction stuff, I have limited strength, and I don't know that stuff, and I'm not interested in that stuff, so I wouldn't be good at that. I wouldn't be a good engineer because maybe the math it takes, I don't have those skills or whatever it is. But it doesn't mean that I am less of a person, valued less as a person, or that I'm an inferior worker. It's just I have a particular fit. And you want people to go where they fit, and then they can maximize their possibility as human beings and get that sort of self-actualization they need to live a fulfilling life.
Well, if a hospital were to call me and say, Donna, we want you to be a surgeon at the hospital, it would freak me out. I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, so there has to be, the employee has to feel comfortable and they have to have confidence in what they do. But if you throw them into something just because of diversity, it doesn't work for anybody in the long run. It's not going to work for your business. And it's not going to work for that person when they can't grow in that area. Let's go ahead and go into a commercial break, and we're going to return in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. You know, finding the right home isn't just about bedrooms and square footage. It's about comfort, security, and the feeling you get the moment you walk through the door. That's why so many families across Greenwood and the Lakelands area trust Jenny Ferguson with Keller Williams. And I'll tell you from personal experience, Jenny was my realtor, and she truly cares about her clients. Jenny takes the time to listen, to understand what matters most, and to guide you every step of the way, whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, or ready to sell. Because this isn't just a transaction, it's your life. With local knowledge, personal care, and a commitment to getting it right, Jenny Ferguson makes the process simple and even enjoyable. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, now's the time to make your move. Call Jenny Ferguson with Keller Williams in Greenwood today and take the next step toward a place you'll truly love coming home to. Shine your style at Kiss My Glass right here in the Anderson Mall. There's a place where style meets sparkle. At Kiss My Glass, every piece is handcrafted, custom designed, and made to shine just like you. Owner Beth Gibson brings creativity to life with stunning custom tumblers, gifts, and one-of-a-kind pieces you won't find anywhere else. Look for the perfect gift or something uniquely you, from bold and glamorous to simple and elegant. There's something for every style, so stop by, get inspired, and leave with something unforgettable. Kiss My Glass inside the Anderson Mall, Anderson, South Carolina, where your sparkle begins. Be sure to check out Kiss My Glass on Facebook for updates and specials and gift ideas. Good afternoon, Sunshine. Medical Minute brought to you by Dr. Chuck with Lakelands Chiropractic, where an ounce of prevention is worth what? A pound of cure. So what is the Beamer? Okay, now the Beamer uses very gentle pulse to electromagnetic signals. This will stimulate healthy muscles and it supports the temporary blood flow. Now let's talk Beamer and circulation support. Now the Beamer gently supports natural circulation in healthy muscles. Now that's what I call natural health. Thank you so much for watching your Medical Minute, brought to you by Dr. Chuck. You know who he's with. He's with Lakelands Chiropractic, where an ounce of prevention is worth what? A pound of cure. I hope you have a super duper awesome rest of the afternoon. You take care.
Lowe's knows that the projects you build in spring are the ones you can't wait to share. It's why we make sure you have our best deals with My Lowe's Rewards, and that you get help from people who've
been there,
done that.
Try this.
This spring, we'll help you build something rewarding.
Hey, Stan.
What's up?
I made you something.
Oh, thank you.
And I got something for you. You grew these?
Of course.
Lowe's knows how to help you spring.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are back. My name is Donna, and this is Alan, the Donna and Alan Show, or the Alan and Donna Show. I don't care what you call it. But Alan, it's always such a pleasure to have you on the show. We're talking a little bit about, we feel like we're in trouble with the country, but you're making me feel a little bit better. It's not quite the snowball effect I was expecting. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, this situation in Iran is a little precarious.
Uh-huh.
We've just announced the Operation Economic Outcast, which I think is fascinating. We're going to target digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. And we basically said no country is off the table. Anybody who is doing business with Iran is at risk of U.S. sanctions. And I think this is coming at the right time. And interestingly enough, Iran seems to be freaking out more about this than it was about our missiles. But, we've had these depleted stockpiles, and we have limited our supply of long-range offensive missiles. And those are expensive. We've got to produce those. We've got to replenish our stockpiles. So I think focusing on cutting Iran's money supply, restricting its ability to sell oil, squeezing its access to the financial system, and just putting out and out total economic pressure is the right thing to do, especially when gas prices at home are higher than we want them to be, and energy costs are higher than we want them to be, and headline inflation is still at 3.4%, which is well above the Fed's 2% target. So I think this is good for our own economic approach. I think it's a less expensive approach for us and has an equal effect. So we'll see, but I think this is the right tactic.
Sometimes success is not necessarily making money, it's saving it. It's what you don't have to spend on. And I think that's really important as well. So let me ask you another question. This is President Trump. Okay. So he's made some very, very wise decisions. And I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not one of those, But then again, I was hoping when Joe Biden was president, I did not vote for Joe Biden, but I was hoping that somehow in the mix of things, maybe I was wrong. And I was wishing him well. I really wanted him to be successful, but we have so much diversity with people who they hate Trump. Aren't you cutting off your nose to spite your face when you wish our president of the United States would fail?
Yes, you are. And I see this behavior from the left a lot. I was at the Heritage Foundation in our office last week, and there were some protesters who came up out of nowhere while I was waiting for an Uber. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And they came up with a megaphone, and I cannot say on air what they were saying, but they were saying basically the F word, Charlie Kirk in the neck hole, over and over again. Bleep Charlie Kirk in the neck hole. Bleep, and they were yelling it right in my ear with the microphone until my Uber driver came. And to me, that is just pure evil. That is pure evil. It shows the place where these people are coming from. And I even see some of these people celebrating Lindsay Clancy, who murdered her kids, aged 5, 3, and 8 months. I mean, one's a baby, and celebrating that. Not just saying, oh, well, she had potentially postpartum psychosis, and she shouldn't be convicted of premeditated first-degree murder, but saying what she did is okay. It's not just that it's excusable under the law, but that it's okay. This kind of stuff is wild to me. That type of attitude and behavior is disturbing, grotesque, and troubling, and it seems to be spreading. Where people on the left actually are resorting to violence and think that violence, taking a human life, can justify whatever problem they're dealing with. I just find that incredibly disturbing. You don't see people on the right doing that, in part because people on the right tend to be religious, and they tend to have faith, and they tend to think that some sort of supreme being is going to execute concrete consequences for that. There's a hell. You might go to hell, or you might be punished in this life for doing bad things. But if you don't believe in any of that, and this is the only world you have, and there are no consequences for sin, then ends justifies the means. Might makes right. That's why they're able to embrace violence as an unqualified good.
Yeah, I mean, and their whole agenda is whatever it takes. If that's lying, if that's killing, if that's stealing, if whatever it is. And that's just absolutely, I can't be behind a party that does that.
I can't either. And that's what I keep saying about the SAVE Act. And I see people complaining about election monitoring. There are going to be extra federal officials monitoring elections. They don't interfere in it because the elections are for the states. They're just monitoring and watching. And people are saying, this is voter intimidation. This is voter intimidation. This is not voter intimidation. They're literally just observing. It might be cheater intimidation. If you're there to cheat, then yeah, you got something to worry about. And if you're a lawfully registered voter, there's nothing at all to worry about. Nothing at all. You just vote. And all these Democrats opposing to say that when the majority of the American people support it blows my mind, because it's the simplest thing. Our voting laws are lax in comparison to most first world countries. We let voter fraud happen at rates that you wouldn't see in other countries.
It's incredible.
And then you see people talk about, well, you haven't proved this or that. Well, yeah, if you could prove all of it, the whole point is not to be able to. You commit fraud, you're not trying to get detected. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying not to get detected. The whole point is not to get caught.
Under 3 minutes left in this segment, so I want to ask you another question, and this pertains to the way people treat each other. Okay, so if kids are taught in school it's okay to have abortions, if they're taught in school that it's okay, to hate people, if they're taught it's okay to hold the severed pretend head of the United States up bloody, if they're taught all those things are okay, do you feel that's why we're seeing more kids killing their parents now?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's probably in some way a contributing factor. I don't know how to assign causation to those types of things, but obviously there are many factors: the violence in video games, the secularization of culture. There are a lot of things that contribute to those factors. I do think when it comes to the embrace of bad economics, it's absolutely a factor. When you have young people who are affected by the affordability crisis, and student loan debt, and real cost of living problems, things that are actually real problems that, it's not their fault. But then they gravitate toward socialism and communism, which are destructive, and we know they don't work. And they do it because they just want to tear down the system, because they've been taught that the system is structurally racist, or it's systemically unequal or unjust, and that's a big problem.
That's a big issue. We're going to have to call it a day. A little bit over a minute left in the segment, but I want you to end this. Tell folks where they can find your books. Great reading.
Thanks, Donna. I mean, they're all available on Amazon. So if you put in my name, Alan Mendenhall, into Amazon, my books will come up. Or you could just go to my website, which is AlanMendenhall.com. Easy enough. That's ALLENMendenhall.com.
Okay, a minute left in this segment. Let's give people great hope before we end it. What would you like to say?
Well, great hope is that if you take the long view of human history, you see that we have gone through worse periods than this one. Even the United States Civil War in the middle of the 19th century was a far worse period than this one. So we as a country have seen it worse, and we as human people have seen it a lot worse. It's easy because it's the moment we live in. You think it's like the worst thing ever. But if you keep things into context, we've seen worse. And I think we have a lot of things to be optimistic about.
I think we do too. Alan, thank you so much for being with me. It's always a pleasure. And thank you guys so much for watching this show. You're the reason we do what we do. Continue looking for us on all the social media sites. You can also go to donnasedge.com. Make sure you go ahead and check out Alan's books as well. And continue sharing. We appreciate you doing that as well. Thank you again so much for watching. Bye-bye.